He thought our 15 years together was the blueprint for a perfect future, until he whispered Chloe in his sleep. What he didn't know was that I'd just been handed the demolition plans. 15 years. That's a lifetime, isn't it? 15 years of building something from the ground up. 15 years of inside jokes, shared holidays, and knowing exactly how the other person took their coffee. Mark took his with 1 sugar. Black. He said milk ruined the integrity of the bean. That was Mark all over a man of principle, even with the small things. We were that couple. The one our friends pointed to and said, "See, it can work." We were the blueprint, the gold standard. High school sweethearts who navigated college, crappy first apartments, and career changes, all while holding each other's hand. We'd just celebrated our 10th wedding anniversary, and our 15th anniversary of being together was only a month away. We were planning a trip to Italy, the one we'd been dreaming of since we were broke 20-year-olds eating ramen on the floor. Our life wasn't just good, it was perfect. A sturdy, beautiful house built brick by brick with love and trust. Or so I thought. The night it all came crashing down started like any other. We'd had dinner, watched some dumb show on TV, and were curled up in bed. The late autumn chill had set in, and the sound of the wind rattling the old windows of our house was a familiar, comforting lullaby. Mark was a heavy sleeper. Once he was out, a bomb could go off and he wouldn't stir. I, on the other hand, was a light sleeper, prone to waking at the slightest sound. I was lying there, listening to his steady, rhythmic breathing, feeling that deep, bone-settling contentment that only comes from being completely secure in your world. His arm was draped over my waist, his familiar weight a comforting anchor in the dark. I remember smiling to myself, thinking how lucky I was, how incredibly, impossibly lucky. And then he said it. It wasn't a mumble. It wasn't a groan or a sigh half lost in a dream. It was a name, spoken with a soft, desperate longing that sliced through the quiet of the room like a shard of glass. Chloe. The word hung in the air between us, crystalline and sharp. My heart didn't just sink, it stopped. For a full 10 seconds, I didn't breathe. I just lay there, frozen, the warmth of his body suddenly feeling like a brand. Chloe? I mentally scanned every person we knew. There were no Chloes in our inner circle. Not a close friend, not a cousin, not a co-worker he mentioned more than casually. The name was a stranger, an intruder in the sanctity of our bed. My mind started racing, trying to build a rational explanation. A character from the show we watched? An old classmate from a dream? But it was the way he said it. The tone was intimate, full of a pained affection that he usually reserved only for me. It was a lover's whisper, a secret prayer exhaled in the dark. I gently eased his arm off me, my movement slow and deliberate, as if I were handling unexploded ordnance. I slipped out of bed and stood in the cold darkness of our room, staring at his sleeping form. He looked so peaceful, so innocent. The man I had loved for half my life, the man who was apparently dreaming of someone else. The initial shock began to curdle, transforming into something cold and hard in the pit of my stomach. I stood there for what felt like hours, just watching him, the silence of the house screaming at me. Every shared memory, every whispered "I love you," every future plan we'd made now felt like a lie. The foundation of our perfect life had just cracked, and I could feel the whole structure groaning, threatening to collapse on top of me. I couldn't stay in that room. I crept downstairs, my bare feet cold against the hardwood floors. The embers in our stone fireplace were still glowing, casting a faint demonic orange light across the living room. This was our favorite room. We'd spent countless nights here, talking, laughing, planning our future. Now it felt like a museum of our dead marriage. My eyes landed on the chair by the door. Draped over it were the clothes Mark had worn today. His favorite worn-in jeans, the soft gray sweater I'd bought him for his last birthday. The scent of his cologne, a scent that had always meant safety and home to me, faintly clung to the fabric. I walked over and picked up the sweater, pressing the soft wool to my face. I expected to feel sadness, a wave of grief, but I didn't. All I felt was a rage so pure and so cold, it felt like it could freeze the glowing embers in the hearth. This sweater, these clothes, they were a costume. The costume of a loving, faithful husband that he put on for me every single day, while his heart and his mind were somewhere else entirely. With Chloe. My hand was shaking, not from fear or sadness, but from a volcanic fury building inside me. He had shattered the cathedral of our marriage with a single, whispered word in the dark. He had set our life, our history, our future, on fire. I looked from the sweater in my hand to the pulsing orange heart of the fireplace. The glass door was slightly ajar, a warm, smoky breath escaping into the room. A thought, ugly and beautiful and terrifyingly clear, bloomed in my mind. He wanted a fire? Fine, I would give him one. My fingers tightened on the soft wool of his sweater as I took a step towards the hearth, the heat from the embers kissing my face. He had set our life on fire with a single word. It was only fair I return the favor. I didn't hesitate. With a flick of my wrist, the gray sweater sailed through the air and landed squarely on the glowing embers. For a second, nothing happened. The wool just lay there, a dark shape against the orange glow. Then a corner of it began to curl, turning black. A tiny lick of flame, almost shy, tasted the fabric, and then the fire took it. A sudden, greedy whoosh as the flames erupted, devouring the gift I had given him with so much love. The smell of burning wool, acrid and chemical, filled the air, a disgusting perversion of the clean, masculine scent it had held only moments before. I watched, mesmerized, as the arms shriveled and the chest caved in, turning to black, brittle lace before disintegrating into ash. It was horrifying, and it was the most satisfying thing I had ever seen. The rage wasn't sated, it was emboldened. I snatched his jeans from the chair. These were the jeans he wore when we raked leaves last weekend, the ones with the faint paint smudge on the thigh from when we repainted the guest room. They were woven into the fabric of our life, our shared history. I balled them up and threw them into the inferno. The heavy denim was more resistant. It smoked and sizzled, the metal rivets on the pockets glowing red-hot like tiny, accusing eyes. The fire hissed, working hard to consume this new offering. I stood there, the heat scorching my face, my heart pounding a wild, frantic rhythm against my ribs. I was a stranger to myself, a primal creature born of betrayal, conducting a ritual of fire and fury in the ruins of my own home. When the last of the denim had been rendered into glowing threads, I sank into the armchair, my body trembling with the adrenaline crash. The fire danced, casting flickering shadows that made the familiar room look alien and menacing. The burning was done, but the cold, hard knot of rage in my gut remained. Destroying his clothes felt good, like a scream I'd been holding in for 15 years, but it didn't change anything. It didn't give me answers. It didn't tell me who Chloe was, how long this had been happening, or how the man sleeping peacefully upstairs could have lived such a monumental lie. The fire was just smoke and ash. I needed something solid. I needed proof. My mind cleared, the chaotic storm of emotion replaced by a chilling, razor-sharp focus. I needed his phone. Tiptoeing back up the stairs was torture. Every creak of the old floorboards sounded like a gunshot in the silent house. I held my breath as I pushed our bedroom door open. He hadn't moved. He was still lost in his peaceful, treacherous dreams. His phone was on the nightstand, charging. Its dark, reflective screen seemed to mock me. I snatched it, my fingers closing around the cool metal and glass, and retreated back downstairs as silently as I'd come. Back in the demonic glow of the fireplace, I pressed the side button. The screen lit up, displaying a picture of us on our anniversary trip to Maine last year. We were smiling, bundled in scarves, the ocean roaring behind us. Seeing it felt like a punch to the stomach. A wave of nausea washed over me. The happy woman in that photo was a fool, smiling for the camera while her husband's heart belonged to someone else. I swiped up. Face ID. Of course. I angled the phone away from my face. It didn't recognize me. Passcode required. My fingers trembled as I typed in our anniversary. 0815. Incorrect passcode. I tried his birthday. Incorrect passcode. My birthday. The PIN for his debit card. Nothing. iPhone disabled. Try again in 1 minute. A minute felt like an eternity. He had changed it. He had a password he didn't share with me. The secrecy of it was another twist of the knife. Panic began to set in. This was my one chance. If he woke up, it was all over. I wouldn't get another opportunity to uncover the truth. I looked around the room, my eyes frantically searching for another source, another clue. My gaze landed on his leather briefcase next to the armchair, where he'd dropped it after work. Mark was a creature of habit. He carried that thing everywhere. It was full of papers, his laptop, the mundane artifacts of his life as a senior architect. But maybe there was something more. I knelt on the rug and clicked the brass latches open. The smell of leather and paper filled my nostrils. I sifted through files, architectural drawings, and legal pads filled with his neat, precise handwriting. Nothing. It was just work. I was about to give up, to admit defeat, when my fingers brushed against something hard in the side pocket, tucked beneath a stack of business cards. I pulled it out. It was another phone, a cheap black plastic-shelled smartphone, the kind you buy at a drugstore for $50 and pay for with cash, a burner phone. My blood ran cold. This wasn't a slip-up. This wasn't a one-time mistake or a fleeting emotional affair. This was a calculated, premeditated, separate life. A life he had carefully constructed and hidden from me. My hands shook so badly I could barely hold it. I pressed the power button on the side. The screen flickered to life, showing a generic lock screen with a simple 4-digit PIN request. There were no pictures, no personal touches. It was anonymous, a ghost's phone. And then, at the top of the screen, I saw it. One new message preview, the text glowing like a brand. It was from a contact saved only as C. The message had arrived just an hour ago while we were watching TV together on the couch. It was only 3 words. Thinking of you. Thinking of you. 3 simple words that detonated the last vestiges of my hope. They were casual, intimate, and sent at 9:47 p.m. on a Tuesday night. Sent to my husband while he was sitting next to me, his arm around my shoulders, laughing at a sitcom. The sheer audacity of it stole the air from my lungs. The burner phone felt like it was burning my hand, a radioactive artifact from a parallel life I never knew existed. My mind raced, trying to guess the passcode. What would he use for his secret life? Not an anniversary, not a birthday. Something meaningless, something untraceable. I tried 1, 2, 3, 4. Nothing. 0, nothing. My desperation was mounting. I could hear the grandfather clock in the hall ticking, each second a hammer blow counting down the time until he woke up and discovered this scene of domestic Armageddon. I stared at the screen, at that glowing message from CC for Chloe, the name he'd whispered in his sleep. I thought about the message, the timing. This wasn't a random thought. It was a reply. He must have messaged her first. What was he doing? Excusing himself to the bathroom and sending furtive texts from his secret phone while I was refilling our wine glasses? The thought made me physically ill. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to force my brain to think logically, to push past the white-hot rage and find a key to this lock. I looked back at the message. Thinking of you. It was an echo of something. What? My brain fumbled in the dark, grasping at memories. Then it hit me. Last week, Mark had come home with a small bouquet of flowers. It wasn't an anniversary or a special occasion. When I'd asked why, he'd smiled that easy, charming smile of his and said, "Just thinking of you." He was recycling his lines. The same intimate gestures he used to reassure me, he was using with her. It was lazy, it was insulting, and it was a clue. My fingers flew across the screen, my heart pounding. I entered the 4 digits that had been the address of our first apartment together, the tiny run-down place where we had built the foundation of our life. 258 Click, the phone unlocked. I felt a dizzying rush of triumph and dread. I was in. The screen was stark, almost empty. There were no apps besides the basics, no photos, no social media, just calls and messages. I tapped on the message icon. There was only one conversation thread. With C, I started scrolling up, my thumb moving frantically, my eyes devouring months of a secret history. The story that unfolded was more devastating than I could have ever imagined. It wasn't just flirting. It was a full-blown relationship. They had nicknames for each other. They had inside jokes. They talked about their days, their dreams, their frustrations. He complained about his boss to her. He told her about a difficult project at work, things he used to tell me. They'd met 6 months ago. She was a landscape architect consulting on a new building he was designing. Chloe. I scrolled and scrolled, the sheer volume of their communication a testament to their deep connection. There were hundreds, maybe thousands of messages. Good morning, handsome. Can't stop thinking about our lunch. Wish you were here. And his replies. They were gut-wrenching. He was charming, attentive, romantic. He was the man I had fallen in love with 15 years ago, but he was giving that man to her. I found pictures, selfies she'd sent him, a beautiful woman with warm eyes and a cascade of dark, curly hair, smiling into the camera. Pictures he'd taken of her when they were together. Chloe laughing over a glass of wine at a restaurant I didn't recognize. Chloe looking out over a view from a balcony I'd never seen. They had a life, a real tangible life hidden in this digital ghost world. Then I saw the dates. They met for lunch, for drinks after work. He'd told me he was working late, stuck in meetings, meeting with clients. Every lie was now laid bare, a trail of breadcrumbs leading me through his betrayal. The worst part was seeing my own life referenced in their secret world. Have to go. Sarah's making her famous lasagna tonight. He'd texted that to Chloe 2 months ago, followed by a sad face emoji. To her, he had painted me as an obstacle, a warden, the boring domestic routine he had to escape from to be with her. I was the famous lasagna, and she was the illicit, exciting dessert. I felt a profound, soul-deep humiliation. He hadn't just cheated on me, he had belittled our entire life together, reducing 15 years of love and partnership to a punchline in his affair. My eyes were burning from staring at the screen, from the unshed tears of rage. I kept scrolling, possessed by a morbid need to know everything, to see the full extent of the wreckage. I had to go all the way back to the beginning, and that's when I saw it, tucked away in their early messages from about 5 months ago. It was a plan for the future, his future, their future. Chloe had written, "Is Italy still the plan for our 1 year? We have to go somewhere amazing to celebrate." Mark had replied, "Of course. I've been saving for it. I'll handle all the bookings. You just worry about what bikini you're going to wear. We'll finally be free." Italy. The trip we were planning for our 15th anniversary, the dream we had shared since we were kids. He wasn't saving for us. He was saving for them. He was planning on leaving me. He was going to take our shared dream, our money, and give it all to her. The phone slipped from my numb fingers and clattered onto the hardwood floor. The fire in the hearth had died down to a dull, pulsing glow, but a new, much more dangerous one was igniting inside of me. This wasn't just about a broken heart anymore. This was about 15 years of my life, my financial security, my future. He was planning to steal it all. I looked from the burner phone on the floor to the dying embers in the fireplace, and then my gaze traveled up the staircase to where the architect of my ruin was sleeping. He thought he was in control. He thought he was the one with the plan. He had no idea that the blueprint for our future had just been redrawn. And I was the only one holding the pen. The world tilted on its axis. Italy. He was going to take our dream trip, financed by our joint account, and give it to her as a 1-year anniversary present, a celebration of the demolition of my life. The cold fury from earlier returned, but this time it was different. It wasn't a hot, chaotic rage, it was a glacier. Slow, silent, and utterly unstoppable. I felt a strange and terrifying calm settle over me. The tears I had been holding back simply evaporated, replaced by an icy resolve. He wasn't just going to leave me. He was going to leave me with nothing, smiling and waving from the Venetian gondola he'd paid for with my future. I picked up the burner phone. My mind was working with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. He thought I was the famous lasagna, the boring, predictable wife. He had underestimated me. For 15 years, I had been his partner. I had managed our finances, proofread his proposals, and networked at his dull work events. I knew the architecture of his life better than he did, and I was about to become the demolition crew. My first move was to document everything. Using my own phone, I began taking pictures of the burner phone's screen. Every incriminating message, every photo of Chloe, every mention of their meetups. I photographed the lies about working late, the complaints about me, and most importantly, the detailed discussion of their Italy trip. It was a meticulous, damning archive of his betrayal. I didn't know exactly what I would do with it yet, but it was ammunition, and I was going to war. Once I had a complete record, I deleted the evidence from the burner. I wiped the photos of Chloe, cleared the entire message thread with C, and even deleted her contact information. I left the phone just as I had found it, a blank slate, a ghost. Then I put it back in the side pocket of his briefcase, tucking it neatly under the business cards. I latched the briefcase shut and placed it exactly where it had been. I was erasing my own footprints from the crime scene. Then I went back upstairs. The faint, acrid smell of burnt wool still hung in the air, but he was still dead to the world, snoring softly. I slipped his primary phone back onto the charger on his nightstand. I slid back into our bed, the sheets now feeling foreign and cold. I lay there staring into the darkness, my heart a cold, hard stone in my chest. I wasn't the woman who had left this bed a few hours ago. She was gone. She'd been burned away in the fireplace along with his favorite sweater. In her place was someone new, someone I didn't recognize. Someone calculating and patient. When the alarm went off at 6:30 a.m., I pretended to stir, just as I did every morning. I feigned a yawn and blinked my eyes open. Mark rolled over, grunting. "Morning," he mumbled, his voice thick with sleep. "Morning," I replied, my voice perfectly normal. It was the performance of a lifetime. I watched him go through his morning routine, showering, shaving, getting dressed, and I felt nothing. No love, no sadness, just a clinical detachment. He was a stranger in my house. A mark. He walked over to his closet to pick out his clothes for the day. He rummaged for a moment before turning to me, a slight frown on his face. "Hey, have you seen my gray sweater? The one you got me for my birthday?" I met his gaze without flinching, my expression a carefully crafted mask of mild confusion. "No, I haven't. Did you check the laundry?" "Yeah, not there. Or in the dryer. Weird. I wanted to wear that today." He shrugged, grabbing another sweater, and for a moment I thought he might notice the faint smell of smoke. But he was oblivious, lost in his own world, a world that I now knew had a secret population of 2. He kissed me goodbye at the front door, a quick, familiar peck on the cheek that felt like a snake's bite. "Have a good day, love you," he said. "You too," I replied, my voice sweet as poison. "Love you more." The moment the door clicked shut behind him, my mask dropped. I walked into the living room and stared at the fireplace. The ashes of his clothes were a gray-black smear in the hearth. It was a start, but it was purely symbolic. Now came the real work. I spent the morning on our computer, delving into the architecture of our finances. We had always kept a joint savings account for big goals, the down payment on the house, the new car, and now the Italy fund. Over the past 6 months, I noticed his contributions had increased significantly. He was funneling extra money from his bonuses into it. He had told me it was because he wanted our trip to be extra special. The irony was nauseating. It wasn't our trip. It was their trip. I opened a new browser tab and started researching divorce lawyers, asset division. I learned that in our state, any assets acquired during the marriage were considered marital property to be split 50-50. But what if one party was deliberately hiding and planning to misappropriate those assets for an affair? The word dissipation kept coming up. I read for hours, my mind absorbing legal terms and strategies. A plan began to form, a complex, multi-stage blueprint for justice. It started with money. He wanted to drain our savings to run away with his mistress. Fine, two can play at that game. I logged into our joint savings account. The balance was just over $25,000. The Italy Fund, their Italy Fund. My hand trembled slightly as I hovered the mouse over the transfer button. This was the first real step, the first move on the chessboard. I took a deep breath and clicked. I created a new account in my name, only at a different bank. I transferred not half, but every single penny, $25,147.32. From the reason for transfer box, I typed a single simple word, renovations. Let him think we were fixing the house he was planning to abandon. Let him think everything was fine. He wouldn't notice for weeks, maybe a month. He only checked the account balance sporadically, but when he did, he would find nothing but a ghost, just like the woman he had been married to for 10 years. I felt a thrill, a dangerous, exhilarating pulse of power. This was only the beginning. He had built a secret life in the shadows. I was about to build a secret war in plain sight. I closed the laptop, a slow smile spreading across my face. I looked at my phone, at the folder of screenshots I had created. I had the means, I had the motive, and now I had a plan. My next step wouldn't be financial, though. It would be far more personal. I needed to see her. I needed to know my enemy. I scrolled through the screenshots until I found it, a picture he'd taken of her, laughing over a menu. In the background, clear as day, was the name of the restaurant where they'd had lunch just last week. The Gilded Sparrow. I knew the place. It was downtown, right near his office. I wondered if they were regulars. The next few weeks were a masterclass in deception. On the surface, I was the perfect wife. I made his favorite meals, asked about his day, and listened with feigned interest as he talked about his projects at work, the very projects that had brought Chloe into our lives. I even brought up Italy, mentioning a hotel I'd seen online, just to watch the flicker of panic in his eyes before he masked it with a placid smile. "Sounds great, hun. We'll look at it together this weekend," he'd say, knowing full well he was booking a different trip with a different woman. Every lie he told, every act of affection he faked, was another nail in his own coffin. He had no idea I was watching him like a hawk, documenting his every move. My first visit to the Gilded Sparrow was a reconnaissance mission. I went for lunch on a Wednesday, the day I knew he often met with consultants. I sat at the bar, ordered a salad, and watched the door. Sure enough, just after 1 o'clock, they walked in. Seeing her in person was a jolt. She was even prettier than in the photos, vibrant and full of life. She touched his arm when she laughed, and he looked at her with an unguarded adoration I hadn't seen in years. The sight didn't hurt me anymore. It was like watching a movie of someone else's life. I simply observed, gathering data. They were comfortable there. The hostess knew their names. This was their spot. Phase 2 of my plan was more direct. I hired a private investigator, a grizzled, no-nonsense man named Frank, recommended by the divorce lawyer I'd consulted with. I gave him the screenshots, the name of the restaurant, and a schedule of Mark's late nights at the office. I didn't need emotional confirmation. I needed legal, undeniable proof of adultery and dissipation of marital assets. Frank was ruthlessly efficient. Within a week, I had a folder full of glossy 8x10 photos. Mark and Chloe kissing in his car after a client dinner, holding hands as they walked into a hotel, Chloe using a key to enter a sleek, downtown apartment. Frank had even run the license plate on her car. He gave me her full name, Chloe Vance, and her address. The address of the apartment he was undoubtedly paying for. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place 2 weeks before our 15th anniversary. Mark came home looking smug. "Good news," he announced, pouring himself a celebratory glass of scotch. "That big bonus I was hoping for came through. It's a big one." He swirled the amber liquid. "I was thinking, for our anniversary, let's not worry about a budget. Let's really do Italy right." I smiled, a wide, predatory grin. "Oh, honey, that's wonderful. I'm so proud of you." I knew from my access to our accounts that his bonus was a staggering $50,000. And I knew it wouldn't be sitting in our joint account for long. This was his endgame. He was going to take that bonus, combine it with our savings, the savings he didn't yet know were gone, and vanish. The day of our anniversary, I woke up early. Mark was still asleep, a peaceful smile on his face. He was probably dreaming of Chloe, of their new life that was just on the horizon. I, on the other hand, had been up half the night preparing. I made him his favorite breakfast, pancakes with real maple syrup and a perfectly brewed cup of black coffee, 1 sugar. I brought it to him in bed on a tray, a single red rose in a small vase. "Happy anniversary, my love," I said, my voice dripping with saccharine sweetness. He looked surprised, almost guilty. "Wow, Sarah, this is amazing. Happy anniversary." He ate his breakfast while I got dressed, putting on the new dress I had bought for the occasion. When he was done, I took the tray and smiled. "I have one more surprise for you. Get dressed. Something nice." He followed me downstairs, a look of confusion on his face. The living room had been transformed. The coffee table was gone, replaced by 2 chairs facing the cold, empty fireplace. On the mantelpiece, where our family photos used to be, sat a single thick manila envelope. "What's all this?" he asked, his smile faltering. "Sit down, Mark," I said. My voice was no longer sweet, it was flat and cold. He hesitated, then sat. I sat opposite him. The air was thick with tension. 15 years, Mark," I began. "That's a long time, a lifetime. You build something in 15 years, a house, a partnership, a future." I paused, letting the words hang in the air. "You also build a pretty solid credit history. You build a reputation." He shifted uncomfortably. "Sarah, what are you talking about?" "I'm talking about Chloe," I said. The name hit him like a physical blow. The color drained from his face. "I know about the burner phone, the lunches at the Gilded Sparrow, the apartment you're renting for her on Vine Street. I know about Italy." He opened his mouth to speak, to lie, but I held up a hand. "Don't. Just don't. You're not a good enough actor." I leaned forward and picked up the manila envelope from the mantel. I opened it and spread the contents across the invisible coffee table between us. Frank's photos. Glossy, undeniable proof of his affair. He stared at them, his face a mask of horror. "And I know about the bonus," I continued, my voice like ice. "The $50,000 you were planning to steal, along with the $25,000 from our savings, to start a new life." I watched the comprehension dawn in his eyes. "Oh, by the way, the savings account is empty. I moved the money a month ago. I called it renovations, because as you can see, our house is in desperate need of some." He was speechless, his jaw working but no sound coming out. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, laying out my terms like an architect presenting a blueprint. "You are going to transfer that entire $50,000 bonus into my account, right now. You are going to sign the quitclaim deed to this house, giving me sole ownership. You are going to sign these divorce papers, which state that you waive any and all claim to my retirement accounts and any other marital assets, citing your adultery and financial infidelity. In exchange," I said, tapping the pile of photos, "these don't go to your partners at the firm. They don't go to your parents. And they don't get attached to a lawsuit against Chloe Vance for alienation of affection, which would make her professionally and financially radioactive." He looked at me. Truly looked at me. for the first time in years. He wasn't seeing his boring, predictable wife. He was seeing the woman who had just dismantled his entire life in the space of 10 minutes. The man of principle looked broken, defeated. He slowly reached for his phone, opened his banking app, and with trembling fingers transferred the bonus. He signed every paper I put in front of him. When he was done, he stood up, a hollowed-out shell of the man I once loved. "Is that all?" he whispered. "No," I said, standing up. "There's one more thing." I walked to the front door and opened it. On the porch was a single packed suitcase. "I packed you a bag, your clothes, your toiletries. Everything else is gone. I burned it, donated it, or threw it away, just like you were planning to do to me." He walked past me without another word, picked up the suitcase, and walked out of my house and out of my life. I closed the door, the click of the lock sounding like the most satisfying sound in the world. I stood in the quiet of my living room, the signed papers in my hand. It wasn't the future I had planned 15 years ago, but it was a future. And it was mine. All mine. I looked at the cold fireplace, remembering the night it all began. He called out another woman's name in his sleep. When he woke up, his clothes were burning. He just never realized the fire had never truly gone out.